We made it, you guys. We are here. It is the Thursday edition of Orange and Blue Today. Cecil, Lammey, Andrew Mason to talk about why the Denver Broncos could actually be the favorites in the AFC in 2026. And Mace, you know I love alliteration. 2026 is for Bo Nix. So let's go. Let's get this thing. And while you and I don't fall into the more like, what's the line say? What's the better say? I don't really care about that. But I look at this team, and you picked up on some stuff there at the Super Bowl. Like, I think the nation needs to be looking at the Denver Broncos maybe a little bit differently than they are.
Well, there's the thorough acknowledgement of how close the Broncos were. No disrespect to the New England Patriots, but very much a thought of, yeah, if Bo Nix doesn't fracture his ankle, they're probably right here in the San Francisco Bay Area getting ready for Super Bowl 60. But even beyond that, so often the fourth down call is brought up. That's the other thing. Even without Bo Nix, the fourth down call, not just the play call, but the decision to go for it. Sean Payton has talked about stewing over the play call, but what I hear more often is the decision to go for it, as far as what people are focusing on. But, point being, all of these things in play to show just how close the Broncos came. Now, we've talked about how in 2025, quite a few things came together to aid the Broncos. The Chiefs regressing to the mean after winning all those close games in 24. Lamar Jackson being injured and the Ravens being off. Buffalo being just a little bit off, especially on the defensive side, finishing in second place in the AFC East, and thus in the rematch of the 2024 playoffs, Buffalo coming to Denver, which, as we saw, helped make all the difference in the world. And then you had a team like Jacksonville that was very good and beat the Broncos in December, but as we saw in January, wasn't quite ready to win in the playoffs, which probably did the Broncos a very nice solid of not having to see those Jaguars again, because that was a bad matchup for them. So yes, there were a lot of things that came together for the Broncos to where you and I have said, hey, maybe this was their best shot. But I've been stewing on this for a couple of days. There are some circumstances in play that show things just might be in the Broncos' favor in 2026. And I'll give credit to Mike Florio of Pro Football Talk for pointing some of these out. That's the launching point for today's discussion. Here's what Mike Florio told me earlier this week regarding why the Broncos might be at least a co-favorite in the AFC as 2026 gets underway.
Looking at the teams in the AFC, you've got Patrick Mahomes coming off of the knee injury. You've got coaching change in Baltimore, coaching change in Pittsburgh, coaching change in Buffalo. It's going to be, the Broncos and the Patriots kind of the favorites going into the season, and we'll see if they can thrive as a front runner and as a contender, and whether or not they'll disappoint or will they duplicate what they did this year.
Change in Buffalo, change in Baltimore, change in Pittsburgh. And even though I think we talked about Pittsburgh being a thoroughly mediocre team, a thoroughly average team, they're still Pittsburgh. And Mike McCarthy's a good coach.
Right. This might be the injection that team needed.
Yeah. We'll see what they do at quarterback. That's the $64,000 question for the Steelers.
Might be Malik Willis.
But rarely is has Mike McCarthy ever had a bad team? I mean, he's had teams that were like 6-9-1. Has he ever really had a bad team, at least a bad team that had a healthy quarterback?
Right.
I don't believe so. So Pittsburgh hired a coach that probably is very similar to Mike Tomlin in that their floor is probably still 8 wins, right?
Sure.
So, but again, they have a change. So you have those three teams with coaching changes, and then Kansas City. Patrick Mahomes is going to have mental reps all off season. And they may not get him actually taking real viable snaps in practice until August, and I doubt they'll have him on the field at full speed until September. Like, he might be stepping in cold in week 1, week 2, week 3, and you imagine they may be cautious given the degree of their investment in Patrick Mahomes. So that's 4 other teams in the AFC that are going to be dealing with either massive change or something seismic. And oh, by the way, the Chiefs have to navigate a massive cap figure right now. They are way over the cap, even with the cap settling north of $300 million for this year. They're way over it. They've got a lot to do. They're worse than the Saints in terms of salary cap territory, believe it or not.
Right.
Okay? So you have these other AFC contenders that all are navigating these landmines here. And then Houston with CJ Stroud. I mean, CJ Stroud's a massive question mark right now. Their defense is objectively great, but we also know it's tough for defenses to maintain that level from one year to the next. And if you're looking for maybe something that's a concern, that's probably a Broncos concern, but that's for another day. But the Broncos did retain Vance Joseph. You look at their primary lineup, their primary starting 22 plus nickelback, third receiver, etc. And the number of unrestricted free agents is slim. It's John Franklin Myers, it's Alex Singleton, it's J.K. Dobbins. Right now, you look at the Broncos and say, hey, there's a lot more stability here than other AFC contenders. So, of course, it makes sense to say, yeah, right now, favorite, at least co-favorite with the New England Patriots at this point. You'd have to say, like Mike said there, I think that's where they stand. And we may even get an early referendum on who actually is the favorite, because it wouldn't shock anybody if Denver at New England is the game we see right out of the blocks in week one. Either Thursday night if the Patriots win on Sunday, or Sunday night if the Patriots lose, because they've often taken, not always, but they've often had the Super Bowl loser penciled in that Sunday night. They didn't have it last year, but they've done that a fair amount of years as well. So wouldn't it all shock me to see Denver at New England right there as an opening game? So we might get an early measuring stick to see just who is the favorite in the AFC, with the two teams that among AFC contenders, I'd say those two and Jacksonville probably looking at the most stability, although even Jacksonville's looking at some potential free agent losses or some moves they're going to have to make. They're going to have to make a decision on Devin Lloyd, for example. Yes. And Devin Lloyd is of particular interest because if he hits the market, it would make sense for Denver to take a long look at him if the Broncos want to inject an upgrade into their inside linebacker core.
Where's this offseason is fantasy football mode for me with the Denver Broncos? What about Travis Etienne? That's another decision right there.
Yeah.
He worked in tandem there with Bashal Tutin, the guy they had to draft because they weren't able to draft R.J. Harvey. Mm-hmm. And I look at this way, Mace. The Broncos have a different view because they're in the driver's seat. Maybe New England should be in the driver's seat. Either way, they're in the front row, right?
Yeah.
And when you look at the NFL, you mentioned the Chiefs and all those one-score games. Mm-hmm. Things are going to be different for the Broncos in those one-score games, or at least there's a possibility they are different. The Broncos are in the front seat, the driver's seat. That's a different point of view. Teams also look at you differently when you were the number one seed. They're coming at you. Denver ain't sneaking up on anybody.
In other words, you're going to take everybody's best shot.
Yes.
Now.
Yes.
Teams will get up for you. The teams would get up for the Chiefs and the Buffalo Bills and the Baltimore Ravens. Remember how the Broncos they got up for the Chiefs in November?
Yeah.
They didn't necessarily play well, but when they went to Baltimore in November, they got up for Baltimore. Baltimore still dropped the hammer on them that day, but the Broncos got up for that game. They got up for the Chiefs the following week in Kansas City. Now, whoever they play is going to get up for them. And actually, that started to happen in December because look at how the Jaguars got up for the Broncos.
Yes.
That was the first taste of life in the driver's seat for the Broncos.
How'd that taste go? Kind of stings, right? Kind of bad taste.
They took a 2x4 to the face from the Jaguars. Woo. By the way, the Jaguars, to talk about salary cap real quick, in terms of effective cap space, according to Over the Cap, as of today, they are $13.9 million over. They've got work to do. The Chiefs are $62 million over. The Jaguars are $13.9 million over. Again, that's a little bit higher than the Saints, only $13.6 million over. The Saints are in better shape than 5 teams. I can't believe I'm saying that, but it's like, hey, for the Saints, it's like, good job. You're not in the worst shape anymore.
They had to go through credit recovery.
Oh my gosh!
Right.
But here's an interesting team to talk about, though, in cap space. The team with the second highest amount of effective salary cap space for 2026, as of today, is the Los Angeles Chargers at $79.2 million. The question is, how much of that will the Chargers spend? Because it's the Spanoses.
Right.
They are not the most cash-rich owners in the NFL. It's not like the Walton Penner Group.
And cap space doesn't mean you got it to spend.
Yes. By the way, two of the three teams with the most effective cap space are in the AFC West, Chargers and Raiders. They're right behind the Titans. Okay. The Raiders can, because of the cash infusions they've had, the Raiders can probably find the cash that they need to go bring in some guys. The thing with the Raiders is they're so far away at the record they had last year and likely turning to Fernando Mendoza. They are definitely more of a longer-term project. Doesn't mean they can't make a big leap if Mendoza is pretty good and Clint Kubiak harnesses things with him and around him. But it's hard to see worst to first from the Raiders. The Chargers are interesting if they choose to spend, and if they spend in a targeted way, then you could talk about them joining that top tier of favorites, because they too have stability along with the Broncos and the Patriots. They just haven't had the health to go with it in the past. So the Chargers are interesting, and I do believe the Chargers and the Broncos are the two teams it's going to come down to in the AFC West this year. I think the Chiefs are definitely, I think, and going to end up being in the wild card conversation when all is said and done. But I think your division winner in the AFC West in 26 will be either LA or Denver. That's where the fight's going to be in the AFC West.
Yeah, Mike McDaniel's going to have that Chargers team looking different.
Yeah.
Have them looking different. And that's why even the Mike McCarthy thing you mentioned.
Big upgrade for the Chargers in OC, by the way, from bringing in Mike McDaniel. Big upgrade.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, and now it's going to be different. And just like the Mike McCarthy thing, I can't look at how I've looked at Pittsburgh in recent years of like, yeah, they'll make the playoffs or be 500, but they're actually not Super Bowl contenders. You can't now say that with Mike McCarthy. The Chargers always choke. You can't now say that with Mike McDaniel. We have to kind of see where these teams are at. We have to see what they do in the offseason, and that just further complicates things for the Denver Broncos. But they should be seeing as front runners and favorites, even though, and again, I'll leave my soapbox alone, Mace. I don't want to annoy people, but lines are made for suckers. Lines are made so more people bet. When the Broncos were 12th in Super Bowl odds, it's so that people would go, here's my money, Vegas. Like, again, we don't subscribe to those things. It's our choice. You may have different choices. I'll do the John Elway, good for you, bud. But the Broncos being 12th in Super Bowl odds doesn't mean a damn thing to me, and not just because of my opinion on sports gambling.
Yeah. I think it's more. I think I put more stock in just the bug that Mike Florio put in my ear than
it's a great comment.
The odds. Yeah, because when he said it, it was like, you know how you have that moment where you talk with somebody and it's like, oh, I didn't think of it that
Eureka.
way. That was what he said. It's like, oh, I didn't think of it that way in terms of all the changes. Because the way you think of it, sometimes what you think of with changes, you're like, okay, well, Buffalo, maybe they upgraded with Joe Brady for Sean McDermott. We don't know that. We don't know what Joe Brady's going to be like as a head coach. I mean, I think they upgraded defensively bringing in Jim Leonard. I think you'd probably agree.
Oh, yes.
And I believe that based on what I have seen from Jim Leonard in him calling defenses at Wisconsin. But that's college. We're going to find out how it looks as a pro, at the pros. I mean, I think Buffalo has upgraded, but I don't know that for certain. But I don't know that Baltimore upgraded going to Jesse Minter. I don't know that. I mean, was it time for a change in Baltimore from John Harbaugh? Yes, it was. But they are taking a risk now. That being said, the Ravens have been a model of stability. They've nailed their last two coaching hires. Brian Billick was a hit and lasted 10 years and won a Super Bowl. John Harbaugh lasted 18 years and won a Super Bowl. So the last miss they had was Ted Marchibroda for 3 years in the 90s, but he also inherited he had a young rebuilding team, and he didn't do a bad job, but it wasn't set up for success back then. So, point being, Baltimore, they haven't had many hires as an organization, but they've gotten the last two right. So, and Ozzie Newsome's still heavily involved with it. Like,
right.
he's got the title where he's kicked upstairs, but Ozzie's still going to the office every day. Like, in a lot of ways, it's still his show. So you think they got the hire right, but you don't know for certain. And Patrick Mahomes, well, we all know that when you're coming off that ACL injury, the first year doesn't look the way you want it to. That's a full year until you are fully back. And for a quarterback who relies so much on the ability to dodge, duck, dip, dive, and dodge, the 5 Ds of dodgeball, that it may look a little rough this coming year. And I mentioned the salary cap issues that the Chiefs are going to have to navigate. And a big part of those salary cap issues, of course, for the Chiefs involve none other than Patrick Mahomes' contract, because his cap number for this year is $78.214 million.
Him and Chris Jones, top of my head, right?
$44.85 million. The two of them are chewing up a combined $123 million of salary cap.
That's a third of the cap.
I mean, that's insane. Armageddon was going to hit for the Chiefs, and they knew this. So there are adjustments that have to be made. It's just fun to talk about these numbers, because it's a 78.2 million number this year. It's a 74.3 million number next year. They will get in compliance, but it's also interesting to look, Cease, that the Chiefs have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Let me count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. They have 11. They have 11 contracts with cap numbers of north of $11 million. Now, there are some that they can get some cap savings. Like Jawan Taylor, they can get $20 million right there if they move on from them. With a pre-June 1 designation, they can get $20 million. So that's probably one that you'd imagine they would make. And then, of course, you got to figure things out, and then you figure things out on the offensive line as well. So they've got some items on the checklist here in the next 5 weeks that they're going to have to figure out. But the thing is also, it's going to hinder how active they can be in free agency. They're not going to be. I mean, I'm sitting here in downtown San Francisco. Neiman Marcus is just up the street there. The Chiefs aren't going to be shopping at Neiman Markup in free agency. The Broncos could go get an item or two at Neiman Markup. The Chargers have the cap space to go shop at Neiman Markup. The question is, do they have the cash to do so? Yes. That's the big. Do they have the wherewithal to do that?
Right.
That's the thing. That's what's interesting. But the Broncos,
can be a little shocked.
Yeah, the Broncos look at those price tags and say, okay, we can afford this. We can make it happen. Broncos, by the way, also, it will be interesting to see if they look to create any cap savings as well. By the way, the biggest cap number the Broncos have for 2026 right now is Mike McGlinchey at $23.775 million. So they've already done the void year thing with Mike McGlinchey to create a little relief. So they got a void year for 2028 on his deal. You wonder if maybe if they want to create a little more space, they'll do some more gymnastics with him, and certainly the way Mike McGlinchey is playing, and also and the way Mike McGlinchey is playing, do they consider extending him a little bit? Now, the other thing that comes into play is Frank Crum and how he's developing. Sure. The other contract, and when we could have a long discussion about this one, Ben Powers, his contract, the Broncos could get $8.38 million if they cut him of savings, if they cut him with a pre-June 1 designation, $12.73 million of savings this year with a post-June 1, and they spread out over 2 years. And Ben Powers becomes relevant because Alex Palczewski is a restricted free agent. We saw how he played for Ben Powers, and of course Powers came back into the lineup late in the season. But if the Broncos look at Palcho and say, oh, he is a potential left guard option, and maybe they can work on a 3-year contract with him as an RFA, do they choose him and see if they can make a move with Ben Powers, either a cut or a trade? Powers may have some value in the trade market as well, so that's one thing to maybe keep your eye on over the next few weeks.
We'll keep you up to date on everything with your Denver Broncos. Let's hear a word from our sponsor and then get some more final thoughts from Mace, who is at Santa Clara. Today's episode of Orange and Blue Today is presented by Ramos Law, the official injury law firm partner of the Denver Broncos. Ramos Law was founded by Dr. Joseph Ramos, an attorney and ER doctor, to provide exceptional care to those injured in accidents. With a unique understanding of both medicine and law, the Ramos Law team is built to fight for you every step of the way. Experience the Ramos Law difference. Contact them today at ramoslaw.com. Good call.
I should do
upstairs, by the way, Mace.
Yeah, it's a little quieter. It's not quite as active, not quite as buzzy up here, but the signal's a lot better. So here on the here on the second floor of the Moscone West Convention Center here. So it worked out okay. I've got a window here. I'm actually looking out over the street. That's why you got the natural light kind of flowing in. That's why I'm reasonably well lit here. I've even got a table. It worked out perfectly. I've got this little table. I could just sit here and do a little more work here. I've probably got another package to edit here. You can look at denversports.com and on the Denver Sports Facebook and on my Twitter, and you can see the little package I put together when I caught up with Drew Lock, just kind of reflecting on Drew Lock, and also you get to hear from him about what he's learned in the last few years, and also even hear his thoughts on when I asked him the simple question, do teams give up on young quarterbacks too soon? Which is very relevant for his time. And because when you look back on Drew, and you look back on 2021 in particular, his final season with the Broncos, he of course had 18 starts in his first 2 years, and certainly 2020 didn't go well. He was down near the bottom at passer rating, but you had Vic Fangio, who clearly had a hot seat, and you had a new general manager in George Payton, and all that, and I think even with the potential ownership change that would come a year later, a lot of things in play, putting a lot of pressure on Vic Fangio to be in kind of win now mode. And if you hadn't had that looming over, if there was a little bit more patience, you wonder if there would have been a bit more patience with Drew Lock to kind of see where he went and maybe give him a little bit more of a chance than he ended up getting. The way I look back on that camp as well, Cecil, I don't know about you, we all kind of did the score keeping, which I hate doing, but we all kind of kept score during that competition. Remember, Vic said it was going to be 50-50 that year.
Right. Never seemed like that.
Yeah. And my thought always was, if it was a tie or close to it, you should go with the younger player who had more upside. And to me, it was close enough to where I would have gone with Drew, because it wasn't like Teddy was this far ahead of Drew. It was it was like this much in the end separating them. And to me, when it's this much, and one is an 8-year veteran and one is a 3-year veteran, I'm going with a 3-year guy. But Vic, fighting for his job, went with the 8-year guy. And Teddy did not have a bad season, but we know that his style of play has a certain ceiling to it, and we saw that over the course of the year, and it ended up being a very middling season and a very frustrating season, and it wasn't enough to save Vic Fangio's job at the end of the day. So it went, and now Drew is he's been a backup Seattle 3 of the last 4 years, and with the Giants for a year, and he's very happy in Seattle. Like it was very telling that Seattle, after a year away, brought him back to be Sam Darnold's backup. So it's the organization.
Don't do that unless they like you.
Yeah, the organization likes him a lot, and that with a different coaching staff, because he was a backup with Pete Carroll, and now he's a backup with Mike McDonald. So it's that one thing that I got this week was just how much in that building and that coaching staff that they like him. And frankly, I think if Clint Kubiak were going to a team that did not have the number 1 pick, I think he would have considered trying to bring Drew Lock with him as a bridge. Having Fernando Mendoza as the number 1 overall pick means he's probably going to be the starter from the jump in Las Vegas. So there's probably not a need for Drew Lock out there, and Drew probably ends up staying with Seattle as Sam Darnold's understudy. But I wouldn't close the door on Drew continuing to marinate in Shanahan, McVay, Kubiak type offenses. And eventually, if he gets a chance to play in that type of scheme, I wouldn't close the door on him having a Geno Smith type arc where you're talking about in year 9 or so, he ends up being somebody's starter. Because we saw with the Giants, he had some rough games, but then he played that against Indianapolis, and he was legitimately great against the Colts in eliminating them from the playoffs, basically.
Yeah.
So the ceiling
Giants
is
may not have wanted him to win that day.
Yeah, he cost the Giants. He cost the Giants number 1 pick.
He's a competitor, man.
So his peaks are still like this, and that will keep getting him shots. The other thing is, I told him this. He's happy, and he's found a personal home in Seattle. He's got a couple of kids. He and his wife have a couple of kids now, and you can kind of see the joy in his eyes and the joy on his face being here, and that, on a human level, is really cool to see. I don't have rooting interest for teams and all that in general. I root for people. I root for Drew Lock to have success.
Drew's a good dude, and losing his dad Andy about a year ago or so, I was closer with Andy, but he's been through a lot.
Yeah.
So to see him happy and somewhat thriving, he'll get that opportunity.
And Andy died young. I mean, Andy was 57. Former, played at Mizzou, and then very successful restaurateur in the Kansas City area, of course. The family's been through a lot over the years, but it's cool. It's cool to see them to see him and see them have joy this week. So Andy was a regular caller to the station back when Drew played.
Sometimes Drew would be right there with him and just hand him the phone. So.
Yep. Mm-hmm. It was actually one of the cooler things back in the day was how they'd be willing to participate in the discussion, and you couldn't help but root for him, and it wasn't perfect. I mean, if there's one thing that I wish could be undone in the Drew Lock time, I wish that entire week of the Saints game could be undone. As far as trying
don't
to
listen to Blake Bortles.
Yeah, don't listen to Blake Bortles. Don't try to pull a fast one on the league. Yeah, that's you weren't gonna. There's cameras everywhere in that facility. You weren't gonna get away with it. Basically, just admit the mistake, because the reason why the league made the Broncos play that game was that no one was willing to kind of cop up to it, and basically the security cameras were like, yeah, you were trying to do subterfuge here. And if everybody had come clean on it, the league would have almost certainly given the Broncos grace and played the game a day or two later. But when you try to pull a fast one on the league, they were not going to have mercy, and that's how you end up with the Kendall Hinton game. If ever, that was,
and an older, more mature Drew Lock wouldn't have made that decision, because you're a quarterback, you're a leader. If Blake Bortles tells me that, I'm saying, shut up, dude, I'm the quarterback.
But the thing is, you had a veteran, right? And everyone's going to go along with. Yeah, so it was unfortunate. And the other thing is, you kind of lost the trust of the coach there at that point. Although the coach ran afoul of the protocols too, so it's not like he wasn't exactly swimming in ivory liquid at that time. I mean, the whole thing was just, man, I don't want to that's a year that none of us want to relive at all.
Bonkers.
I don't even like watching highlights of sports from that year at all.
No fan.
Because I don't like seeing clips without fans in the stands at all. Now, occasionally I'll look at them on my phone to remind me to appreciate what we have of times that are normal, to appreciate the magic and energy of spectator sports, the energy that we get from the crowd at any event. But like when they show clips from games that year, like, and sometimes you'll see them kind of sneak in. Like I was watching recently one of the highlight films that was put together. The Buffalo Bills did a wonderful film recently when they closed down Highmark Stadium, and they did it to they did it to one of the old they did it to a Goo Goo Dolls song.
Okay.
And they had all the clips, and right in there there were a few clips from the COVID year, and it's just like they stuck out like a sore thumb, right? You see the empty stand, like you see the empty stands, and you see, remember how the first like 8 rows of the stands were covered with like sponsor branding and whatnot. Yeah, it just didn't look right. I actually, in that Drew Lock video, I actually put a few photos in there that you can find on Denver Sports Social, and you can find on my social as well. I put the photos in there just to kind of just to provide a representation of how different it was. But like, you can see like a photo of empty Gillette Stadium in Foxborough, Massachusetts. A Mercedes-Benz Stadium in Atlanta that had about 5,500 fans, and Heinz Field in Pittsburgh. That was really weird. I remember during the game, I walked out of the press box because in the press box at Heinz Field, it's right near the ramps in the corner. And so I could walk out and I could just stand on the ramps and watch the game outside. And I walked outside because I just wanted to experience what the game was like in an empty stadium. And so I'm on one of those ramps, which are really high up, but the stadium, it's quiet. Obviously no fans. All the way up there, I can hear the sounds of, the play call being barked at the line of scrimmage, right? The guys yelling when there's a big play. It was just so eerie to experience that. Yeah. So yeah, I don't like even the big moments, like the Broncos. Drew Lock and the Broncos had a big comeback that year against the Chargers,
right?
Capped by the touchdown pass to KJ Hamler on the last play to walk it off. I don't like watching that. Don't like watching anything from that year. I mean, occasionally I'll reference it. I'll reference plays from that, but it's almost like it's from another plane of existence.
Another timeline.
Yeah, and right down to the fact that in the NFL, on a league-wide basis, an all-time high for passer rating was set that year because offenses didn't have to operate in noisy environments. Nobody ever had to go silent count because there were no fans in the stands. Like, remember, you'd watch TV and they would simulate crowd noise, but they didn't do that in the stadiums. It was just quiet. So it was like practice. You operate in practice without the speakers. You could operate in a vacuum. There was no home field advantage that year at all. And because of that, as I said in the video, offenses ran riot that year. And frankly, it made Drew's statistical struggles even more pronounced when you looked at some of the numbers that quarterbacks were putting up. Like the scoreboard, it was like pinball on the scoreboard that year. The other thing that was happening is they weren't calling holding as much. I think they were also trying to make things easier for the offense and jack up the scores to keep people watching, because you didn't have the excitement and the buzz of fans in the stands. So it's like, well, we got to do something to generate excitement. Let's just make it offense, fireworks to compensate for the fact that there's absolutely no energy in these venues. So anyway.
Fans make a difference.
Yeah, it does. The fans make an absolute difference, and it's anyway. And over here, and I'm looking out over the city, and it's good. It's good that things are normal. Hopefully, we never have to go through anything like that again.
Please and thank you. It is Orange and Blue today. Cecil, Lammey, and Andrew Mason. You got one more day out there. Of course, you'll be there for the game as well. We'll talk about it coming up on Monday. But we certainly appreciate everyone out there for helping us out on our YouTube channel. We've got some OBT clips coming for you on our YouTube channel as well. So make sure to help us out. And Mace, how can folks do that to help us on YouTube?
Like,
comment,
share,
subscribe,
hit that notification bell,
so that you
never
miss
bit.
That's right. He is Andrew Mason. You follow him on all the socials at Mace Denver. I'm at Cecil Lammey saying OBT is a BFD. Thanks for watching. Stay tuned, and would you please stay frosty.